Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Most people think they're mysterious. Sigma females know they're just poorly lit. Unknown observer. There's something unnerving about a woman who watches everything and says nothing. Not out of shyness, not out of politeness, but because she's recording you, quietly, meticulously. Almost like she's part human, part lie detector, part emotional forensic scientist. And here's the chilling part. Research in social cognition shows that the human brain picks up on over 11 million bits of information per second, but the conscious mind only registers about 40. Most people miss 99.9% of what's happening. Sigma females? They live in the other 99.9%. While you're rambling about your job or name-dropping your latest breakthrough, she's scanning your nervous system, decoding your silences, and mentally filing your soul under deep, shallow, or avoid at all costs. She doesn't look impressed, because she isn't. She's not looking for words. She's looking for patterns. And trust me, if you think you got away with something, you didn't. She just decided you weren't worth the confrontation. So today we're pulling back the curtain. These are 12 things Sigma females secretly notice about everyone. The signals most people miss, but she never does. Brace yourself. This isn't personality fluff. This is human X-ray vision, with standards. And hey, if you start sweating halfway through, don't worry. That just means you're being accurately perceived for the first time. Let's begin. Number 1. If your generosity has strings. When someone gives with a smile but expects a return, Sigma females feel it before a word is spoken. They don't just look at the action, they track the energy behind it. That's why fake generosity doesn't impress them. It actually repels them. Because to the Sigma, generosity isn't measured by what you give. It's measured by what you expect after giving. She notices the people who do favors, but secretly keep score. The ones who offer help with invisible strings attached, whether it's loyalty, validation, or emotional debt. You can't hide that hunger under politeness. Sigma females have been on the receiving end of enough conditional kindness to know when something smells off. Even if everyone else is fooled, they aren't. They pick up on the subtle tension. That slight pause after the gift, the way the giver watches for a reaction, the lingering expectation in their eyes like, now you owe me. That's not generosity. That's a transaction dressed up in nice words and a fake halo. Sigma females are repelled by that kind of manipulation because they've seen how dangerous it can be. They know that some of the most toxic people don't come in with threats or rage. They come with help, support, even love. And then they cash in on it later. That's emotional blackmail in slow motion. So she pays attention, closely. She sees who gives freely and who gives to control, and if she senses that your kindness is a bargaining chip, not a true act of care, she detaches immediately, not dramatically, not with confrontation, just gone. Because to her, real generosity leaves no aftertaste, no guilt, no IOUs. It's clean, it's clear, it's free. And if your kindness isn't, she won't expose you, she won't argue. She'll just vanish, quietly, completely, and leave you to wrestle with your own performance. Number 2. Whether your presence expands or shrinks others. Sigma females are always scanning the room for one thing: energetic impact. Not how loud you are, not how many people laugh at your jokes, but how people feel when they're around you. Do they loosen up or shut down? Do they breathe deeper or hold their breath? Do they feel seen or subtly diminished? She watches the way your presence alters others, not when you're speaking, but when you simply exist in a space. Some people walk into a room and make others shrink, not overtly, not aggressively, but through microdomination. A look of disapproval here, a dismissive smirk there, the kind of person who needs to dim everyone else's light so theirs can seem brighter. Sigma females feel that instantly, like a change in atmospheric pressure. She also notices those rare people whose energy does the opposite, the ones who expand others. They don't compete. They don't correct to impress. They don't dominate with intelligence, charm, or volume. Instead, they create space. People open up around them, ideas flow, self-consciousness melts. That's true power in her eyes, the kind that doesn't need to shrink anyone to exist. Sigma females are deeply allergic to subtle tyrants, the insecure ones who play alpha by suppressing others. They don't always confront it. In fact, they usually won't say a word, because they're not trying to fix you. They're just taking notes. And when she senses that your presence consistently contracts the energy of those around you, it's game over. No dramatic exit, no call out, just gone. Because to a Sigma female, your effect on others is your real aura, not your intentions, not your words, not your brand. And if your aura makes others feel smaller, she knows you're operating from a wounded place, one she has no interest in entering. She doesn't need to fight you, she just refuses to orbit your gravity. Number 3. How you deal with boredom. How someone deals with boredom tells you more than any personality test ever could. Sigma females pay razor-sharp attention to this quiet in-between space, not when you're on stage, not when you're charming the room, but when there's nothing happening. No stimulation, no spotlight, no audience. That's when your real self shows up, or doesn't. Most people panic in boredom. They reach for their phones like life support. They scroll, refresh, escape. Some fill the silence with empty words. Others get visibly irritated as if the universe owes them constant entertainment. But to the Sigma female, that's revealing. Because boredom isn't the problem. It's a mirror. And if you can't sit with yourself for 5 minutes, that tells her everything she needs to know. She watches what your boredom pulls out of you. Do you create something, even if it's small or silly? Do you observe your surroundings and find patterns? Or do you wither and whine like a child with no toys? Sigma females aren't impressed by people who can perform under pressure. They're impressed by people who can stay grounded in stillness. She notices who gets more curious when the world slows down, and who gets more desperate. If you can only come alive when something external is stimulating you, you're not really alive. You're just reacting. Sigma females want to know what lives inside you when nothing's feeding you from the outside. They also spot the hidden arrogance in how people treat boredom, as if it's beneath them, as if life should always be a highlight reel. That mindset signals emotional immaturity. Sigma females don't chase highs. They mine meaning from the mundane. So when you're just sitting there thinking no one's watching, she is, not in a creepy way, in a diagnostic way. She sees if you can build with your mind, stay present in silence, or if your boredom makes you sloppy, needy, or numb. And if you fail that quiet test, don't expect her to say anything. She just mentally marks you not self-generating and moves on. Number 4. Intellectual depth versus info-dropping. Sigma females don't equate intelligence with big words, trendy opinions, or clever name drops. They've been around enough surface-level, smart people to know the difference between true intellectual depth and performative intelligence. One feels grounded, lived in, and original. The other is like a parrot, dressed in a lab coat. She listens closely, not just to what you're saying, but where it's coming from. Is it rooted in personal thought, experience, and internal struggle? Or is it just borrowed brilliance, reheated from the latest podcast or YouTube essay? Because regurgitation is easy. Depth isn't. She can tell when someone is quoting thought leaders like they're reading ingredients off a cereal box, detached, rehearsed, soulless. There's no integration, no critical friction, just an impressive echo of smarter people's ideas. And to her, that's not intelligence, that's mimicry. Real thinkers make her lean in. Not because they have all the answers, but because they ask better questions. They wrestle with nuance. They admit uncertainty. They don't try to win conversations. They explore them. There's a quiet confidence in that kind of mind, a lack of need to perform. Sigma females are drawn to that like a magnet. But when someone starts dropping buzzwords just to seem insightful, dopamine loops, trauma response, quantum consciousness, she notices. Not because she doesn't understand it, but because she does, and she knows when someone's bluffing. And here's the worst offense, trying to teach her something to establish dominance. That's when she mentally checks out. Not because she's arrogant, but because she can smell insecurity dressed as intellect from a mile away. So while others may be impressed by polished vocabulary or clever references, Sigma females aren't. They're not looking for knowledge that's been packaged. They're looking for minds that have digested what they've learned and turned it into something real. If you can't do that, she won't argue. She'll just quietly file you under well-studied, underdeveloped, and move on. Number 5. Trauma leakage. Sigma females don't need your life story to know you're carrying trauma. They read it in your tone, your patterns, your emotional residue. You might think you're hiding it well. You're not. Not from her. She picks up on trauma the same way some people smell smoke. Instinctively, instantly, and with a heightened sense of danger. She's not judging it. Everyone has wounds. She's not looking for perfection. She's looking for awareness. What matters to her isn't that you've been hurt. It's whether you've dealt with it, or whether it's leaking out of you like invisible shrapnel, cutting everything in range. She notices the subtle overreactions, the sudden defensiveness, the sarcastic deflections, the need to dominate, please, or disappear. All coping mechanisms. All signs that some old pain is still running the show. She knows that passive-aggressive people are rarely evil. They're just protecting bruises no one can see. But knowing that doesn't mean she wants to walk through your emotional minefield, and she will never walk through it blind. That's the key difference. While others might fall for the charm, the ambition, the drama, she sees the underlying instability, the invisible tripwires, the anger that simmers beneath politeness, the sadness behind the humor, the rejection hiding under perfectionism. Sigma females assess trauma not because they want to rescue you, but because they refuse to become collateral damage. She's been burned before. She's learned. Now she watches first, deeply. She asks herself, is this person aware of their wounds, or are they enslaved by them? If it's the latter, she steps back, quietly, with no judgment, but with absolute self-protection, not out of coldness, out of wisdom. Because the truth is, unprocessed trauma doesn't just hurt the person who carries it. It spills. It projects. It lashes out. And she's not here to be the cleanup crew for anyone's emotional mess. She'll see it. She'll understand it. But she won't absorb it. Number 6. Your relationship with truth. Sigma females pay close attention to how someone relates to truth. Not just the comfortable truths, but the ugly ones, the inconvenient ones, the ones that make you lose followers, friends, or face. It's not about being brutally honest all the time. It's about having the backbone to stay loyal to reality, even when it's easier to perform, deflect, or lie. She notices if you shift your opinions depending on who's listening, if you bend facts to protect your ego, if you avoid hard conversations because they might make people uncomfortable. To others, that might seem diplomatic. To a Sigma female, it looks like spiritual cowardice. Truth isn't just something you say, it's something you live. And she can feel when someone's out of alignment with it. She watches how you react when you're wrong. Do you get defensive? Do you pretend you weren't? Do you joke your way out of it? Or do you own it, cleanly, clearly, without spinning? Because to her, owning the truth, especially when it humbles you, is power. It's character. It's rare. Sigma females have no interest in people who curate themselves to be liked. It might charm others, but to her, it's cheap. She sees the fear behind the performance. And once she senses that someone would rather protect their image than face reality, she starts to withdraw. Not dramatically, just decisively. She doesn't trust people who need approval more than they need truth, because those people will always betray either themselves or others to stay liked. And if it comes down to it, they'll betray her too. So she watches, closely, quietly. And if she realizes you lack the spine to stand in truth when it counts, she files you under untrustworthy. Not because you made a mistake, but because you couldn't face it. And when she steps back, it won't be a scene. It'll be silence. Because in her world, truth is sacred. And if you can't handle it, you're not safe to stand beside. Number 7. How you hold power. Sigma. Females are acutely sensitive to how power is held, used, and worn. It's not the title, the money, the charisma, or the followers that impress her. It's the relationship a person has with their own power. That's where the truth lives. And she sees it with surgical clarity. Some people need to assert power constantly, through dominance, interruption, control, or performance. They need others to shrink so they can feel tall. That kind of power is loud, reactive, and fragile. Sigma females see it for what it is: compensation. It's the energy of someone who's terrified of being irrelevant without external control. But then there are those who hold power differently, quietly, calmly, not as a weapon, but as a natural part of who they are. They don't dominate a room, they stabilize it. They don't impose, they radiate. Sigma females are magnetically drawn to this kind of power, the kind that doesn't demand attention because it commands respect without trying. She sees whether your power comes from ego or from essence, whether it's performed for the crowd or forged from solitude. And she especially notices what you do when you have the upper hand. Do you lord it over people? Do you flex? Or do you stay centered, measured, respectful? She also sees how you treat people with less power. That's the real test. How you speak to the silent ones, the awkward ones, the nobodies. That's where your relationship with power gets exposed, without you even knowing it. Sigma females don't fear power. They just don't worship the fake kind. They respect power that comes from self-mastery, not self-marketing. So while others may fall for flashy confidence or alpha energy, she's scanning for something deeper, something quieter, something real. And if she senses that you need others to be beneath you in order to feel worthy, she won't argue. She'll just label your power insecure, borrowed, brittle, and step away. Because to her, the strongest people aren't the ones trying to win. They're the ones who don't need to compete at all. Number 8. Whether you're mentally sovereign or socially programmed. Sigma females don't just listen to what you say. They trace the origin of your thoughts. They're not impressed by trendy opinions, borrowed quotes, or perfectly aligned political takes. In fact, the more polished and correct you sound, the more skeptical she becomes. Because she's not looking for someone who fits in, she's looking for someone who thinks. She can sense instantly if your beliefs were inherited, copied, or fear-formed. Did you actually question that worldview? Or did you just download it because it was popular, safe, or familiar? Are you saying what you believe or what you think will keep you accepted? To most people, there's no difference. To her, it's night and day. Sigma females have spent years tearing down their own mental programming, dissecting what came from family, culture, religion, or trauma. That's why they're mentally sovereign. It wasn't handed to them, it was earned. So when they meet someone who never asked, why do I think this, or who gave me this rule, it's not a match, it's a walking template. She notices how you speak about controversial topics, not just what you believe, but how fragile or defensive you become when questioned. If you get rattled, offended, or rigid the second your view is challenged, she knows this belief isn't rooted, it's installed. And unexamined beliefs are dangerous because you don't control them. They control you. And here's the kicker. She doesn't care what you believe. Left, right, spiritual, atheist, none of that matters to her. What matters is that you chose it consciously, that you bled for it mentally, that it came from inside, not from the crowd. If it didn't, she tunes out, not to punish, but to protect her energy. Because Sigma females don't connect with echo chambers in human form. They connect with thinkers, with rebels, with souls who've burned down their programming and rebuilt from scratch. If your mind was manufactured by algorithms, pastors, or groupthink, she'll know. And she'll walk away, not because you're wrong, but because you've never truly been you. Number 9, your energy signature. You don't have to say a word around a Sigma female. She's already reading your energy signature. And no, this isn't some vague spiritual fluff. It's real. It's the silent broadcast of your nervous system, your intentions, your emotional state, and your core values, all wrapped into the invisible frequency you emit just by existing. Some people walk into a room and bring peace. Others bring chaos, tension, hunger, or an unspoken desperation to be liked, validated, or needed. Sigma females pick up on this immediately. She doesn't need context. Your vibe speaks before your voice does. She feels when someone is frantic inside, not because they're moving fast, but because they're internally unstable. They might be smiling, cracking jokes, or networking like a pro, but beneath that is a restless, anxious, approval-chasing loop. That's not charm to her. That's chaos with a fresh haircut. She also senses hunger, the kind that isn't about food, but about lack. The hungry energy of someone who wants to be seen, chosen, rescued, or adored. It feels like emotional suction, and Sigma females avoid it like a black hole. Not because they're cold, but because they know how draining it is to stand next to someone who's silently begging to be filled. Then there's parasitic energy, people who latch onto others to feel alive. They mirror, flatter, overattach, and slowly drain you under the disguise of closeness. A Sigma female can detect that within minutes, sometimes seconds. She won't say anything. She'll just start closing the door, energetically first, then physically. But the ones who are grounded, who carry themselves with quiet clarity, no pull, no pretense, no agenda, that's rare, that's powerful, that's peace. Sigma females don't just notice that kind of presence. They respect it instantly, because in a world full of noise and personas, your energy tells the unfiltered truth. And if it's chaotic, clingy, or manipulative, she won't confront you. She'll just vanish. Your signature told her everything she needed to know. Number 10, if you're a mirror or a mask. Sigma females instinctively sense whether someone is a mirror or a mask. And to her, that difference is everything. A mirror reflects truth, even when it's uncomfortable. A mask hides behind performance, even when it's killing the person wearing it. She pays attention to how people show up. Do they say what they mean, even if it risks not being liked? Or do they shapeshift to match the crowd, speak in buzzwords, and smile through discomfort just to keep the peace? Masks might fool the average person, but to a Sigma female, they're unbearable. They feel fake, suffocating, emotionally plastic. Not because she hates people, but because she can't breathe around dishonesty. When she meets a mirror, something in her relaxes. These are the rare people who don't need to impress, pretend, or please. They just show up, raw, honest, sometimes messy, but real. That kind of presence reflects her back to herself. That's who she trusts. That's who she bonds with. But masks are like performance art she never asked to watch. She sees the curated persona, the edited identity, the avoidance of depth. She notices when someone says what they think she wants to hear, when they contort themselves to be liked instead of known. It doesn't make her mad. It makes her deeply uninterested. Because here's what she knows. People who live in masks can't handle real connection. They're addicted to performance, and they expect you to perform too. And Sigma females, they'd rather be alone than play pretend. So she watches, quietly. She tests, subtly. She says something real, something uncomfortable, just to see what you do with it. If you flinch, deflect, or retreat behind your mask, she knows. Not ready, not safe, not for her. No need to fight it, no need to fix it. She'll just disappear, not because you wore a mask, but because you were too afraid to take it off. Number 11, the energy debt factor. Sigma females don't just read people, they feel them. And one of the first things they detect is the energy debt factor. It's the silent toll someone takes on a room, on a conversation, on a moment. You don't have to be loud or toxic to be energetically expensive. Some people drain energy just by being chronically unregulated, emotionally needy, or spiritually hollow. She walks into a space and instantly picks up who's leaking energy and who's generating it. Some people are batteries. Others are black holes. You can't always see it with the naked eye, but her nervous system feels it like an internal radar. Someone may be saying all the right things, smiling at the right time, but if they're secretly unstable, attention-starved, or projecting unresolved chaos, her body tenses up before her mind even finishes the thought. She notices the people who require extra emotional labor just to be around, the ones who dominate the vibe, subtly demand validation, or create tension without ever naming it. These people are high maintenance in ways that have nothing to do with appearance. They require energetic resources just to be tolerated. Sigma females have no interest in constantly self-regulating just to keep someone else from falling apart. She's not here to babysit someone's identity crisis or absorb the emotional clutter they refuse to clean up. That doesn't mean she's cruel. It means she's efficient. Her nervous system is wired for self-preservation, and when it detects energetic drain, it begins mapping exit strategies immediately, socially, emotionally, sometimes physically. She might keep the conversation going. She might nod politely, but internally she's already packing. Because to her, The most exhausting people aren't loud or rude. They're the ones who act harmless but cost too much to manage. And if your presence is expensive and you don't even know it, you'll never hear her call you out. You'll just wake up one day and realize she's no longer in the room. Number 12. Micro-disrespect patterns. Sigma females don't need a blatant insult to clock disrespect. They catch it in the tiny, subtle moments most people overlook. A half-second interruption. A forced chuckle at someone else's expense. A compliment that's just a little too sharp around the edges. These micro-slights, these split-second cues, tell her more about someone's character than their entire speech ever could. She notices when someone dismisses a quieter person mid-sentence. When someone's body language tightens only around people they subconsciously deem below them. When a so-called friend makes a joke that lands more like a jab. These aren't accidents to her, they're patterns. And patterns are truth in disguise. To others it might seem like nothing, just a flinch, just a tone, just a glance. But Sigma females have trained themselves to observe what happens in the margins of behavior. That's where masks slip. That's where ego peeks through. That's where cruelty hides in plain sight. She especially notices how people treat those they don't find useful. The waiter, the assistant, the socially awkward person at the edge of the group. If you're kind only when it's convenient or strategic, she sees that immediately. And no, she won't confront you. She won't lecture you. She doesn't need to. She just categorizes you correctly and moves accordingly. Because to a Sigma female, micro-disrespect is more revealing than grand gestures. Anyone can be charming when they're trying to impress, but your reflexes, your slips, those tiny tells when you think no one's watching, that's your real emotional signature. And once she catches it, she won't forget it. Not out of spite, but out of precision. She simply refuses to stay close to someone whose default mode is to diminish others in passing. She won't fight for space in your world. She'll just quietly exit and carry the full picture of who you are with her. In a world obsessed with appearances, Sigma females move by instinct, not illusion. They don't care about your image, your charm, your curated personality. They care about what's underneath, the texture of your mind, the clarity of your energy, the truth in your presence. While others get distracted by noise, Sigma females are listening to the signal, that subtle frequency that tells them who you really are, long before your words ever do. They notice what others miss, not because they're suspicious, but because they're sensitive. Not emotionally fragile, but neurologically tuned. They read micro-expressions, nervous system mismatches, energetic debt, intellectual mimicry, and the subtle residue of unresolved trauma like trained observers in a quiet war. Every interaction is data, every silence speaks, every gesture means something, and they never need to call you out. They just quietly categorize you, self-generating or draining, grounded or performative, mirror or mask, truth-teller or truth-dodger. Not with judgment, but with precision, because a Sigma female doesn't bond based on surface compatibility. She bonds based on energetic integrity. If you fail those unspoken tests, you won't know. You'll just find that she's no longer within reach. To be in her presence is not about impressing her. It's about being real enough to withstand her depth, honest enough to reflect, sovereign enough to think for yourself, and strong enough to stand without needing to shrink others. Because at the end of the day, Sigma females aren't looking for perfect people. They're looking for congruent ones, people whose energy matches their values, whose kindness isn't strategic, whose intellect wasn't downloaded, whose presence expands others instead of contracting them. If that's you, you'll notice something rare, her full attention. If it's not, you won't notice her leave, until she's already gone. If this resonated with you, if it hit deeper than the usual surface-level noise, then don't just scroll past it. Hit that like button to show some love. Drop a comment to share your thoughts. And share this video with someone who needs to understand what Sigma females truly see. And if you're drawn to this kind of brutally honest, raw, and rare insight, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Join a space where we don't do small talk, clickbait, or sugarcoating. We decode what most people can't even see. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Because this isn't just content, it's clarity.